Hi, everyone. This is Arlene Klein, and I'm here with Justin DeMers, and he is with Click Go Live. He's coming to us from Canada. And today we are for our summit for Moving Your Movement Practice Online. We will be talking to Justin about videos and YouTube and going live and using Zoom. So, Justin, I will let you go ahead and introduce yourself. Welcome.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. And yes, we are going to be conquering that fear around going live or making recorded videos, because in a lot of cases, that magic that you do with your people in person can completely happen online virtually. And there's a little bit of a learning curve, whatever you'll say, but it doesn't have to be as scary or as long of a process as people think. And so I'm excited today to just share a couple of really quick things that you can do to make videos that look and sound great, but that also relate to your audience and your customers.
Great. So, how would you like to start off? Can I ask you a question that I've been wanting to ask?
100%. Fire away.
Okay. So, when people go live, whether it's via Facebook or Zoom, or even YouTube videos, I know it can seem very overwhelming. It's been overwhelming for me to just even go. It's live for me here with talking with you.
Mhm.
What do you think are the essential items that people need if it's their first time doing this to make sure that it goes off without a hitch?
Well, that's good, because literally the only thing you need is your phone. That's like the complicated answer is, go buy a fancy camera, get a big light and great audio, and at the end of the day, especially relating to just live videos, the magic is in connection and the ability for you just to show up as your imperfect self. And the thing with video in particular is it can be this like never ending trap of always just trying to level up and get the best camera, get the best lights, get the best, all these things. And at the end of the day, it's easy to forget that really it's just about connection,
Right.
both in making sales, but also in delivering an experience to your customers or clients.
Mm-hmm.
And so the beautiful thing, particularly around Facebook or Instagram, is your phone is an amazing vehicle for connecting with an audience. And yes, you can get fancier mics or use AirPods or wireless earbuds, and that may help a little bit if you're in a noisy environment. But at the end of the day, for a lot of people, just taking out their phone and literally just hitting that go live button and connecting with their audience is something that has tremendous power. And there's not a lot of people doing it, which is crazy to me, but like there is a tremendous opportunity for pretty much every single type of business owner to go live and actually connect with their audience. Now, you had mentioned like Zoom and YouTube. Those are slightly different animals, I'll say, because one of the things that I preach is understanding like how people use a platform. And so how a user interacts with live video on Facebook is very different than how a user interacts with live video on YouTube, for example, or LinkedIn. And that is something to be aware of, because another trap that can easily be fallen into is this idea of like, I'm just going to do the same content on every single platform, right? I'm too busy, so I can't create custom content on every platform. So I'm just going to put all the same thing on every platform. In theory, that sounds great, right? Do one thing, get 7 times the amount of exposure out of it.
Right.
In reality, though, it doesn't work, because the way someone consumes content on YouTube is very different than the way that they consume content on Facebook. Mm-hmm. So on YouTube, you can think of it as like more intent based, right? People are going to find a solution in a lot of cases. Like that's their search, how to do this, when to do this.
Yeah.
Whereas in Facebook, it's primarily still a social network where people are going to be entertained and delighted and see funny things and connect with loved ones or friends. And just that like simple understanding of those two platforms, for example, should dictate the type of content you're creating, and therefore the lives, in this case, that you'd be putting up. So one of the things that I walk my clients through for something like a Facebook is they don't need to be long. You don't need to have marathon live videos. You don't even need to teach, which quite honestly, like light bulbs go off for a lot of people when all of a sudden they they don't have that burden of always having to teach, then live videos become a lot more simple, right? Because you don't have to prepare for them. You don't necessarily have to have a huge presentation. You don't have to look like super professional all the time. You can be a little bit more casual and laid back. But when you look at something like a YouTube live videos in a lot of cases are pretty lengthy because the platform itself is pushing watch time. They're pushing people to stay on YouTube for a long time. And that means that like chances are if you're going to go live on YouTube, you will have some sort of presentation. You will have some sort of mapped out video that you want to create with the lessons that you want to share, the calls to actions, all those things. And so it's a different thing altogether. What I will say is if you're just getting started with any live video, my recommendation is you just pick one platform and you go deep versus trying to do 7 platforms and going wide. Because what ends up happening is if you just go deep on a single platform, chances are there's more business there than any of us can ever fulfill in a lifetime. And it's that whole concept of having to be everywhere is kind of like scarcity mindset. Like, oh, I don't want to miss out on the potential of TikTok, or I don't want to miss out on the potential on Instagram, or I don't want to miss out and at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, you're missing out on the potential of those platforms, but you're also then missing out on the potential of all the people on that one platform. And particularly around video, there's more than we could ever serve on one platform.
For sure. And I see it plainly now and clearly. Because when you're first starting off, you're just like, you have all these platforms, and I know you want to push yourself out there on every one, myself included. Not that it's worked quite that well. So let's say if we take Facebook, you would say Facebook is more for the personal. So even though I'm maybe posting to my business page, would you suggest then if I go live there, if I were to teach something, it's maybe something quick and short, but then make it so that what would I be posting? Like an idea of what I'm doing for the day? Could I be posting this? Like right now I'm live here with Justin.
Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, people buy from people. And the advantage that we have as small business owners, practice owners, like studios, whatever it is, like, is we're not like giant corporations that are faceless. Like when we show up as who we are and share what we believe in and what we connect with and who we are and who we love, whatever it is, that gives other people, your potential clients and customers, the ability to connect with you on a human level. And at the end of the day, like what you do is probably not that different than what the competitor down the street does. You probably do something similar. Maybe you have a proprietary method, but at the end of the day, like the result that someone gets is probably pretty similar. But what is different is your experience and who you are and how that experience is delivered. And so it can be a little bit scary to share that, right? To come out and say, this is who I am.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like that's what people connect with. And so for me, on my business page, sometimes I'm talking about going live. Sometimes I'm just talking about like being a dad and building Lego with my children. One of the things I did a little like impromptu poll in my client group, and I was like, hey, who here would like raise their hand and self-identify as a family person? And a significant majority of people were like, yeah, that's me. It's because what I talk about in my live videos is like how I build my business around my family and how I'm a family first entrepreneur. It doesn't really relate to going live per se, but what it does is it kind of separates the people from like, oh yeah, I'm fam first. I connect with what Justin's about. Maybe I want to build a business, or maybe I want to use live videos like that because, I mean, if he can build a great business using simple live videos, maybe I can too. And then it's the other people who are like, I'm all about the hustle and grind. I don't care about family. Like they're not going to connect with me. Like we're not going to see eye to eye in the things that I ask them to do. And so it's just like a natural repellent in the same way that it is like a natural attractor.
Right. And
go ahead.
No. Go. You can keep going. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, so when you're thinking about like content for your business page, yes, you can be talking about what you do and sharing like testimonials and client results. but just don't shy away from sharing who you are as a
Right.
person,
Right.
because that's what gets people to raise their hand and say, I want to work with you, Justin, or I want to work with you, Sam, or I want to work with you, Timothy, or whatever, versus I just want to work with this type of person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what I was just going to say is that that definitely resonated with me again. What you were saying, because I have a new client that I'm working with, and one of the reasons why he was wanting to work with me, and I think we got along so well, is because our priority
Mm,
was our family,
totally.
and we were. I think I was not here in my office, and I was in another part of the house, and I said, "I'm sorry, I'm just taking this now," and I said, "My daughter might be running behind me here in a minute. Just ignore her." And he's like, "Oh no, that's okay. That's why I'm up here in this room, because I have two sons and they're downstairs making a lot of noise, and our priority is to for me to, when I'm helping him, is to help him streamline and get his work done in a timely manner so that he can have more time with his family."
Amazing. You
So yeah,
connected on a personal level. Like
yeah,
that is, we we take that for granted. Like if we're FaceTiming our loved ones, like we're connecting on a personal level, but like that same power that you get when you're FaceTiming your mom or your dad or your children is totally possible with a Facebook Live on your business page. Sure, totally possible.
mhm. So with our group that we have here, with the movement practice,
Mhm.
I would say it's more of like the Feldenkrais, yoga, Pilates, physical therapists, and having
Mhm.
to take their practices online. There there's movement involved. Obviously, it's in the title. That's why we're talking about movement, and that's why we wanted you on here to, because normally, like me, and if I'm talking to somebody and you, and we're just sitting here, da, 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 and you could say it's not that difficult because you just have to sit in front of your camera. But
Yeah.
what are some tips you can give for this group of people who are going to have to stand up and maybe be on the floor, or do some movement and walking around, and not a lot, but using maybe a larger space for their class?
Mhm. Yeah, and I have clients that have helped in this exact field go online, particularly around uh, COVID, but also just this idea of kind of future proofing their business.
Mhm.
And so, yes, there are some, if we're just sitting down and talking, I call this more of like a controlled environment where I have everything kind of like locked down. There's not really anything that could go wrong apart from my two children opening that door there and walking in. That's really the only uncontrollable thing I have here. And so when you're thinking about an environment of filming, be mindful of that. Like, what can you actually control so that if it decides to rain on the day that you're planning on doing this, that those clouds aren't preventing too much light from entering your space? Or if, as you mentioned with your client, like, is there going to be people walking behind you? Like, is there a way that you can partition that so that it's not going to be like that? Or something as simple as, you know, whereas one of the considerations around audio is like if you get further away from your camera and the mic itself, well, then you start picking up less of your mouth and more of reflections and reverb in a room. And so you can be like really close to the mic and sound great, but if you take 10 steps out there to do a full movement, full body, type of movement, well, then all of a sudden you're 10 feet away. You're now not going to be as clear as your audio. You're going to get a lot more echo in the room. And so something as simple as like a wireless microphone. I'll show the one that I recommend, which is called the Rode Wireless Go. The reason I recommend this one
Mhm.
is it's really inexpensive. Two, you can get an adapter so it plugs directly into your phone, your computer, easy.
Mhm.
Um, but more than that, is it actually has a built-in mic, so you don't actually need what's called a lapel mic. So you can actually literally just clip this to your shirt, and now all of a sudden on the inside, so you don't have like a big bulky thing. Now all of a sudden you have that mic distance never changes based on how close or far you are from the camera. It still stays the same relation distance to your mouth. So if you're doing a full body movement, you can go out there, you can show it, and then you can come back to the camera and talk, and all of a sudden we can still hear you while you're out there.
Okay.
And so, but at the end of the day, just be mindful of this idea of like a controlled environment. Like whatever you can do to control it,
Mhm.
the better. The more variables that you leave to chance, that's when people get really flustered around live videos because something doesn't go right. And oh my gosh, like you get nervous, your mind gets off path. You start to think like performance mode where you're like, oh shoot, like I can't believe I did that. Or
Mhm.
how, like, is my shirt looking all weird now? Or like,
Mhm.
and then all of a sudden you get out of that like connection and teaching mode and
Right.
into like performance mode. And that's never a good place to be when it comes to video.
Right. 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 That's true. And just even starting here today, I did that. I'm like, I couldn't get the title right, and I was just like flustered. And yes, everybody, I'm not a machine. I have to tell myself that sometimes I'm not perfect. I've had a crazy morning.
Yeah.
I know I'm going to have a crazy afternoon, and just trying to get myself into this space to talk with you right now. And I do have to tell myself, oh, it's okay. This is me. This is Arlene. We're normal
Totally.
and we're human. Showing that part of yourself when you're video at taping, and I think is authentic and nice to see that
Yeah.
they're not just a machine. They're showing you something. They can flub a word or a sentence, and
Hmm.
it's comforting in a sense.
And it's relatable. But one of the things that we think that when we're making videos, we aspire and we look to like television shows or movies, and we're like, well, that's what the goal is. At the
Mhm.
end of the day, like in a lot of cases, perfection comes at a hindrance to connection. And being relatable is far more important than being perfect on video. So
Mhm.
if you do make mistakes, if you do say something silly or do something silly, or you mess up your move halfway through and you correct yourself, like that's totally fine. Like that, if anything, it's better because it shows that you're not a robot,
Mhm.
you're a human, and it gives us something to connect to.
Right, right. So I think that that is a good point for people who are wanting to build their confidence to go online, who are not used to being tape recorded, or I should tape recorded. See how old I am?
It's okay. I knew what you're saying.
Video recorded, put out on the cloud. um, that it can be scary for some people. That even for the younger generation, I know that um, not everybody likes to be recorded, but they're a little bit
Mhm.
more used to it than I would say that the majority of people.
Yeah, and they're used to it because they've just been doing it more. Like it's video is one of those like 10,000 hour type skills where yeah, there's some things some people are born with like a creative eye, and ability to see light, which a lot of video is really just comes down to like light. But at the end of the day, it's also totally something that is just the more you do it, the better you are. Like that's just the way it is. So if you're probably get I tell this to everybody, but you're probably gonna like not be that great the first time you do it. Maybe not even the 20th time you do it. Maybe not even the 100th time you do it. But every single time you do it, you'll get better and better and better. You'll get more comfortable, more confident. You'll speak more clearly. You'll deliver your message more coherently. And you'll realize that like it's kind of like a snowball when it comes to connection. And the more that you show up for your people, the more they show up for you. And that is like it's reciprocity at its like at the finest, where it's like you're showing up for your people and they're showing up for you, and it's just this thing that just keeps happening and getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's awesome.
Great, great. So we talked a little bit about technology already. You said we needed a phone, and you mentioned a mic that you
Yes.
suggested. Anything else that you would suggest
So
technology-wise?
yeah, there's so lighting is one of the things that people recognize they need light, and
Mhm.
so they'll end up on Amazon, and then they'll end up buying lights that usually aren't very good. So when I'm helping primarily movement-based businesses, Pilates, or uh, I have a client that does physical therapy slash physiotherapy, and she's needing a larger space. Like, unless you're going to go spend a lot of money on lights, you just have a lot of space to light, and there is no like cheaper slash better option than just available light from Windows.
Mm-hmm.
The catch is, as I said, it's not necessarily controllable, right? There'll be certain times of the day where maybe the light is really harsh, like sunlight beaming directly in. There'll be some times of the day where maybe it's cloud cover and you're not getting as much light as you need. So it's kind of like a catch-22, but it is the easiest thing to get started with, is just understanding the basics of light. And part of that I recommend is, if the lights you have in your space are like directly overhead you ahead of you, like so overhead fluorescent, pot lights, whatever it is, almost always my recommendation is just turn those off, because light that comes directly above usually doesn't create the greatest shadows on your face, and it's also usually not the same color temperature as
Should I go turn that off?
We'll talk about that after. It's also usually not the same color temperature as what daylight is.
Mm-hmm.
Generally, when you're in an office environment or a practice environment, it's usually on the warmer side, those lights. And what you'll notice, it's not like, our eyes are really good at like correcting things, but cameras and webcams aren't. They're not as smart as we are. And so what will end up happening is you'll have skin tones that either look off, whether it's a little bit too blue or too yellow, and you're just like, what's happening? And usually the culprit is mixed lighting color temperatures. So warm indoor lights, cool outdoor light. So when I'm working with someone that has a larger space, I'm usually saying, like, let's turn off the lights if you have a big window, so that we can just light it with window. If you don't have a big window, well, then you're kind of stuck with using some of those lights and augmenting it with additional lights. But when you're dealing with full body, right, if you're doing full body movements, you need a pretty large light source. If you're dealing only with like this, well, then you can get by with a slightly smaller light source. The reason I say all of that, and this is going to get a little nerdy, so I do want to say, like, the bonus that you guys are going to get access to, I cover this in length. So don't feel like you're like, I've got to learn all the things right now.
Right.
But one of the misconceptions about light is the idea of, I'm going to put it further away because it looks harsher up front. Like if I put that light really close, it's like too harsh on my skin. It's actually not true. So a light close has more intensity. It's brighter, but it's actually softer. So by that, I mean like the shadow on your face. So the closer a light source is to you, the softer that light is going to be on your face. The challenge, the other thing that makes it softer or harsher, is the size of it. So unfortunately, a lot of inexpensive lights are pretty small. So when you take that small light and you kind of push it a couple feet back so it's not in the shot of you with your wide, it's a pretty harsh direct light. It's not very flattering in a lot of cases. Right. And so that's kind of the benefit of just using a larger window, for example, is it's big, so it's soft, and you can move your body closer to it so it's even softer. So you're just kind of like double dipping in a nice soft light. Versus if you're going to have to go out and buy supplemental light, like, you need a pretty powerful light and a pretty large, what's called a modifier, to go in front of it to actually get the equivalent of a nice window light. Mm-hmm. Really nerdy. Again, I do talk about that more in the bonus, though, if you want to nerd out. Mm-hmm. The short of it is, in most cases, I would recommend that, like, if this is the window, I'm not facing it 100%. I'm usually like off on a little bit of side, so I still get some shadow and shape. Mm-hmm. And I'm as close as I possibly can be. If it's like direct sun, I'm a huge fan of just shears. So something to kind of filter the light but not block it. That acts as like a really, really good way to soften that more direct, harsh light.
Okay, great. I like that, because everybody has, me working with Cynthia and her lighting, we've been through various types of lighting for the recordings for our summits the last 3 years. And we've been and tried so many different things for her recordings, and also her recordings that she does for her courses that she has for her membership, because she does a lot with movement and she does show the whole body. And there have been times where I'm like, no, you look fine. She's like, no, but I see this color and I see this color. And it is really, like you said, it's the person who is looking at it that it could look different, even though you're seeing it a particular way.
I think when it comes, it's just one of those little things. Yeah, one of those little things where, the most important thing is connecting with your audience.
Yeah,
So like that is the
and
most important thing.
they can see you. That, you know what I mean? Whether you're a little bit of blue or a little bit purple, as long as they could see and get the message across, I think it is most important too.
And one of the easiest things is just turn off those lights, use a window, and all of a sudden, like a lot of complications that may happen because you're fussing with lights and trying to get it perfect, like you don't really have to worry about it. Again, you can just focus on connecting with your audience.
Connect with your audience. Yes. Yes. Well, I hope we are connecting with our audience here today. And I really think we are. I think we're doing a great job of it. Thank you for being here with us, Justin.
Is my pleasure.
Anything else you can think of that you think would benefit the movement practice and people who are wanting to go online?
Well, I've got one more kind of simple tip as it relates to audio, because I think this will help. And then so I'll start there, and then I've got just kind of a bit of encouragement at the end. Okay. So again, when I'm working with people that are in larger spaces, yes, getting your microphone close to your mouth, right, is going to help. The other thing is, in a lot of cases, right, Pilates or yogas, there's a lot of hard surfaces in these, right? Hard floors, hard walls. There's not a lot of like soft, squishy surfaces, and it makes sense. But with audio is really bad at just hitting a surface and bouncing right back. And that's how you can get those really like large echoes, for example, when you get into a yoga studio and there's no bodies in there. And so you don't really notice that when you fill that room with 30 bodies, because now all of a sudden the sound is being absorbed by the people. But if you're doing a Facebook Live or you're doing a Zoom and it's just you yourself in this large space, my recommendation is if you can get as many soft things in there as possible, the better. Pillows, carpets, blankets, just something on walls, on the floor in front of you, like just little things you can do, ideally out of the shot, but little things you can do to mitigate some of those sounds from bouncing off the walls or the floors and coming back at the microphone. The other benefit of just being closer to a wall versus like in the direct middle of the room is then you have less of a chance of those reverb sounds actually getting to your microphone in time. So it's one of those things where, I would recommend a couple of feet away from the wall, maybe like 6 or 8 feet away from the wall if you can, but not to the point where you're like in the back of the room and you're 20 feet away from your camera, because you will pick up quite a bit of an echo. And, one of the, as you said, your audience is probably going to forgive slightly off skin tones if you're a little bit blue too. But if they can't hear you, if there's like a really bad quality audio, in a lot of cases, people tune out. They can't put up with that. We can put up with slightly bad imagery, but bad audio, it just hurts. And so that's one of those, the reason I brought that up is like, it's just one of those things where soft stuff in your filming space is always benefit. So for example, I'm sitting there's carpet below me. I've got some softer material against the wall that's right here just to mitigate some of that. And then that pegboard behind me, I've actually put, that's something my wife and I built, but behind it, there's actually sound insulation. So I'm literally like behind there just to try and deaden some of the sounds from bouncing in this room. Mm-hmm. And then the last thing I was going to say as far as the encouragement is like, there is no better way to connect with your audience, to take your movement practice online than live videos. And it's going to be scary. You're going to like pressing that button before you go, like you are going to feel tension. You're going to feel resistance. You're going to feel when you're live and you see the counter and the little heads pop up with people watching, like you're going to feel nervous and you're going to feel like vulnerable. Just lean into all of that, because the people who are watching know that too. Everyone knows that like going live isn't as simple as just like you're live. Like, people will give you grace. People will be empathetic to you. Like it's all of that will happen. But more than that, like you will actually really connect with your people in a way that is not only life transforming, but transforming for your business.
Right. And reaching a larger amount of people, I believe, and this is why I like doing this, because it's not limiting you to those who can drive to your studio. It's taking you outside of your community, outside of your city, even international for a lot of
100%.
clients. Yeah. So great, great. Well, thank you. And I wanted you to mention again your giveaway and your free bonus that you're giving to people during the 72 hours of the summit.
Yeah.
We'll have a link for that, but if you want to go ahead and mention what it is.
Yeah. So I have a mini course on more like the technical side of things, particularly around using Zoom. So Zoom meetings or webinars or just lives like what we talked about today.
Mhm.
And it's basically the nuance of how to get those to look really good and sound really good. So both the camera type stuff, but also the settings in Zoom, because there's a couple of kind of buried settings. I'm not sure why they're so hard to find, but they're just nuances that lead to a much better quality live stream and then also recording afterwards. And so that's a completely free mini course. At this point, I think 7,000 or 8,000 people have gone through it, and we've received some really positive praise around it just being a really simple, actionable mini course. Not a lot of fluff, and just right to the stuff that matters.
Great, great. Well, thank you again for being here with us. And it was wonderful. I learned a thing or two, and I'm going to sign up for that free Zoom. I should have done it before today.
All good.
I
It's
might
all
have
good.
learned a thing or two. But
I
thank you.
appreciate you having me.
Oh, yes, for sure. And I know that this is going to be a huge benefit for everybody because this is a key to going live for sure.
Mhm.
Well, thank
Cool.
you, and have a good week. And hopefully, we'll see you around sometime soon.
Cool. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.